Distribute and combine. Isabel is a medical researcher determining the amount of antibiotics that should be administered for sepsis related to a bacterial infection from a wound. Isabel is using the equation to determine the rate. So we're going to go ahead and help her solve this. But before we can solve this equation, we must simplify the left and right sides. So one way to do this is to distribute and then combine like terms. So to distribute, take the outside number, and then we're going to multiply it to each of its numbers in the parentheses. So let's go to our example. We're going to write this out. So we're going to notice we have to distribute the left-hand side. So we do this by 7 times 2x, which is 14x. 7 times 6 is 42. And we're going to make sure we add that minus sign, which is equal to 5x plus 3. Now we're going to move the 5x because it's a smaller number like we've always done. So this becomes 0. So we can just put 3 below. So 14 minus 5 is 9x minus 42. Now we're going to add 42 to both sides. So we get rid of the 42 on the left-hand side and we can start isolating the x. So now we're left with 9x is equal to 3 plus 42 is 45. So let's just bring it right here. So 9x is equal to 45. Then we're going to divide by 9 on both sides. So now we can get x by itself because 9 divided by 9 is just 1. So we'll just leave it as x. 45 divided by 9 is 5. This is our solution, which is great. So now let's go to another one. So Larry's a laboratory technician processing a blood sample for a patient with sepsis. Unfortunately, the system that calculates the infection is not working and Larry will manually have to complete the calculations. So he's going to need to solve this equation, which has 2 distributions. So let's go ahead and start solving for him. So to do this, we're going to multiply 3 times 8, which is 24x. 3 times 9, which is 27, which is then equal to negative 3 times 2, which is negative 6x, negative 3 times 5, which is minus 15. So let's move the 6x. So let's add 6x to both sides. So this gets rid of the 6x on the right-hand side. So now we're just left with negative 15. Now we have 30x as 24 plus 6 is 30 plus 27 equals negative 15. So let's go ahead and just move that 27 now, which then becomes 0 on the left-hand side, and we're left with just 30x. So 30x is equal to negative 15 minus 27. So really we're just adding, but we're going to make sure we keep that negative sign there. So 5 plus 7 is 12. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 plus 2 is 4. So we have, we'll put this over here, 30x is equal to negative 42. So let us divide by 30 on both sides. So now we have x equals negative 42 divided by 30. But we can reduce. And 42 and 30 each has a multiple of 6. So let us just divide by 6. So 42 divided by 6 now becomes negative 7. Now 30 divided by 6 is 5. So this is our solution. So let's do another problem. So Dan is also a laboratory technician processing a blood sample for a patient with sepsis. The system is also down again and calculating the infection, so Dan will manually have to calculate. So let us solve this equation to help Dan. So you can see there's a distribution, so let's go ahead and start doing that. So let's just actually first write this out. So 10 times 7, which is 70x. 10 times 2 is minus 20, because we want to make sure we have that minus sign there, which is equal to negative 18x minus 5. So let's go ahead and add 18 to both sides. So that becomes 0 on the right hand side, and we're just left with negative 5. Now we have 98x minus 20. So what we're going to do is actually add 20 to both sides. So then we get 98x on its own, because this becomes 0. So we have 20 right here minus 5. So 20 minus 5 is 15. So let's go ahead and actually just write this over here. And so let's get x by itself. We're going to divide by 98 on both sides. And so we're going to get x is equal to 15 over 98. And this is our final answer for this problem. So let's look at one more. Isabel is working on a different antibiotics for sepsis. Help her solve for the amount of antibiotics that should be administered. Isabel is using the equation to determine the rate. Here's this equation here. So let's go ahead and solve this for Isabel. So we have a distribution. So 7 times 2x is 14x. 7 times 6, 42. So minus 42. Plus 2 is equal to 5x minus 1. So as you can see on the left-hand side, we can actually simplify these two numbers. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have 14x minus 40, because minus 42 plus 2 is negative 40. So then we have 5x minus 1. Let's go ahead and subtract 5x on both sides. This gets us to 0 on the right hand side. So now we're just left with negative 1. 14 minus 5x is 9x minus 40. So let's go ahead and just move down a little bit so we have more space. So let's now add 40 to both sides. So this becomes 0. So 9x is equal to 40 minus 1, which is 39. We divide by 9 on both sides. So we're left with just x. So we have x is equal to 39 over 9. And this is our solution.